Jalen Milroe, Shedeur Sanders, Carson Beck. Who are their NFL quarterback comparisons? We're going to tell you this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and the other side of this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to say shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. DP, we're going to have a fun show today, man. We closed the scouting notebook, right, for a day or two. We closed the scouting notebook, and we decided to have a fun conversation. We brought it up on a couple shows ago, and we talked about QP comparisons, right? Like what quarterback has to play well in the NFL, and it'll help that college prospect out, right? So we're gonna pull some direct correlations. This is gonna be quarterback NFL comparisons, right? Like who are the comps for these guys, and what has to happen, because we know that the NFL is a copycat league, right? So you see one guy doing the NFL, and then those teams that need those quarterbacks, they're going to want to draft those guys in hopes that they can become that future NFL star. But DP, before we get started, man, why don't you hit them with our title sponsor?
Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Guys, Jalen Milroe, 6'2", 220-pound, superb athlete that he is for the University of Alabama. And you talk about quarterback comparisons, Keith. We've seen so many different body types and archetypes that fit that same type of mold of Jalen Milroe. Big arm, super athletic, a guy that some would say, man, you know what? He's a better runner than passer right now. We've heard that phrase a lot over the last 20 years of quarterbacks coming into the league. And Keith, I thought about two names this morning. The first name plays for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Jalen Hurts. And when I want to preface this by saying that's the name he's going to invoke. Okay. Yeah. But so for our family, for our listeners, what we're the kind of the basis of the conversation is players in the league, quarterbacks in the league, that these young prospects need them to have good seasons in 2024. That's going to help their draft stock. And I think Jalen Hurts, getting back to 2022, when he went to the Super Bowl, he was one defensive flag that should have never been thrown, by the way, a defensive flag away from beating Patrick Mahomes. He outplayed Patrick Mahomes in that Super Bowl, Keith. He was on a tear in 2022. Had some changes to the coaching staff, different things like that ahead of 2023. He didn't play the exact same. If he gets back to 2022 and 2024 with Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, and all these weapons they have in Philadelphia with the Eagles, he can play back to that type of season he had in 2022, MVP candidate, maybe back to the Super Bowl, knocking off the Niners, you know what I mean, in the playoffs. I think that will bode well for Jalen Milroe. But the other guy is, of course, let's talk about the elephant in the room, is Anthony Richardson. Now, yes, is Anthony Richardson 2 to 3 inches taller, 25 to 30 pounds heavier? Yes, he is. The body types are a little different in terms of height and weight, but it's still yet the conversation around both of them coming into their final seasons in college was what? They're raw, they're unrefined passers, and if they get drafted this draft, they're probably going to be 2 to 3 year projects. That's what we heard about Anthony Richardson. I think if both Richardson and Jalen Hurts goes out there and takes the league by storm the way we think that they should and could, that's going to help Jalen Milroe. It's going to help his draft stock, because at the end of the day, Keith, we know that a lot of times it's a copycat league and history plays a part in it. If you got an archetype or a play style that has failed, why would a team take you in the top 5 knowing that every other one before you failed? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And I want to go back to Jalen Hurts, and I'm going to use that one more because I think the body types are more similar, right? Like you said, Anthony Richardson is probably 3 inches taller and 30 pounds heavier, right? But going with Jalen Hurts, I like that comparison. And so this is when I talk about Jalen Hurts, we have to remember what the conversation was. Like everybody forgets he was a second round pick, I think a middle of the second round pick. And even when the Eagles drafted him, some people said, why did they do that? Right? Like, because he's not going to beat out Carson Wentz. Remember that conversation, DP? And so having done that, and then remember what the conversation was around him was the processing as a passer, right? The accuracy, the deep ball accuracy, right? Is he more of just a running quarterback? So that's where I go with the conversation. I think that Jalen Milroe has a lot of the same misnomers. They went to the same school. Jalen Hurts didn't finish at Alabama, right? But some of his bigger moments were at Alabama versus Oklahoma. And even I would say that this is not an evaluation. This is more of an experience. Right, when we went on that national championship run, we played Oklahoma in the first round of the playoffs, DP. And I remember watching Jalen Hurts on the sideline, was like, he's solid, right? But there's some things that he needs to work on. And I believe, CeeDee Lamb was on that team, so they had a couple weapons also. But it's still, as far as shredding up a defense with his arm, he was not there yet. And so I think Jalen Milroe probably is a very similar comp. And as far as getting NFL people to believe that quarterbacks can develop in the NFL and you can turn a quote unquote primarily running quarterback into a good passer, Jalen Hurts, the case study of Jalen Hurts has to work, and it will help Jalen Milroe's draft stock moving forward.
100%. And I think, and like you said, like this is a situation where the being more of a runner, and then it's like the style of run, right? Power runner, not the Lamar Jackson, the Michael Vick stuff, but it's like more so downhill. Like, and that's always a concern for teams, as we saw, like even with Cam Newton. I live in the Carolinas. I watched Cam his entire career, and I watch him take hits that no quarterback should take, and that wore out his body, right? He ended up having a shoulder injury twice. Like, surgery on that shoulder. That's really what got him out of the league. It wasn't his big persona. It wasn't that he couldn't play. It's because his shoulder was not the same. You know what I mean? After that injury, and after the fact that they told him to wait for the surgery. So you don't want your quarterback to have to be subject to certain hits, but that ability to take some of the pressure off the backs in the backfield, because at the end of the day, the defense has to key on you as a run threat. That's something that is so prevalent in today's NFL, just football in general, high school, college, all of it. When you have a guy that teams have to, when they hold that mesh point and they make eye contact with that backside defensive end, that quarterback who can move is like, please go down the line of scrimmage. I dare you. Take it. Take the running back, because I'm going to pull this ball out of the mesh point and I'm replacing you on the edge. And it puts him in such a conundrum and compromising position. And then it opens up the passing game. You know what I mean? When you start to then get the glance routes off the RPO action, you get deep shots, you change the numbers and change the math in terms of what the secondary looks like, who's in the box, who's not in the box. The run fits are different. Everything changes, where then it allows you to be that it gives you more advantageous throwing lanes than, hey, we're playing drop 8. You know what I mean? Because you're not getting out the pocket. So like a guy like Jalen Hurts, I think absolutely. I think they might be similar in height. I think you said it might be similar in height too. Like 6'2", 220, 225, somewhere in there. Only thing I think, and you correct me if you think different, I think Milroe probably is a more juiced up runner, like more acceleration.
Yeah, I think straight line. Yeah, he probably has more straight line burst, acceleration, explosiveness, however you want to, say it from there, right? Like obviously, we experienced it last year, and he ran for 150 yards against my LSU Tigers. So that was definitely a crazy experience. I think he accounted for 4 touchdowns running the football. So he took over that game with his legs. But I definitely agree with you. But DP, let's go ahead and transition, man. We're going to Shedeur Sanders. Who is his NFL comp? Which guy in the NFL has to play well, because it will bode well for Shedeur Sanders' NFL draft stock? We're going to talk about that coming up next.
Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your number one ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your number one ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Shedeur Sanders, son of primetime Dion, Coach Prime Sanders for those Colorado Buffaloes, Keith. And when you think about Shedeur, and you're like, all right, what quarterbacks in the NFL does he need to perform well that's going to help his draft stock? And first thing that came to mind was CJ Stroud. And I'll tie it together like this. Coming into last year's draft, there was a lot of negative things said about CJ Stroud. I'm preparing to hear a lot of negative things about Shedeur Sanders. Like, I'm just preparing for it, right? Like, he's very outspoken on social media, right? He defends his teammates who are still there, defends his father. Like, people don't, it rubs people the wrong way. Like, that whole family are very outspoken.
This is about to get interesting, DP, because if you about to take this where I think you're taking this, that this is just not on the field. This is off the field stuff.
Off the field, yeah. 100%. Okay. I mean, like, that stuff, I'm expecting to hear it, right, Keith? Now, What else did we hear about CJ Stroud? Oh man, like, he tested terrible. He's an idiot. Like, people say all type of crazy things about his football IQ, and I'm like, I watched the tape of this man. I don't see what y'all are like. I get this test is regarded, but the biggest test is what you do between the lines of the game. And I watched him process defenses and different things like that. People going back to even Justin Fields, like the negative connotations that we hear come draft time. And I look at CJ Stroud and I look at his game, and then I look at Shadeur's game, and they're very similar to me. Where these guys shotgun, they can work under center, but similar to Joe Burrow, these are guys that want to empty the set and they want to throw it, and they're full field readers. They're pitchers. These are guys who are accurate. They got ball placement, more than enough arm talent. That was the other question about Stroud, right? People said, does he have the arm talent really to live in the NFL? Does he have the mobility? In the same, I think might have put that in my report with Shedeur Sanders. He had the same problem. I won't call it a problem, but same tendency as CJ Stroud. They want to win from the pocket. Even though they're athletic enough to make plays, they typically want to sit, survey the field, and get the ball out. And both of them took sacks they should have never taken while in college, because it's like, that if you activate your running ability and your athleticism quicker, you can get yourself out of trouble. You can save your offensive line, save some hits on your own body. And I've seen that. I can't remember which game I watched with Shedeur. He rattled off like almost a 30-yard run. And I'm like, can we see this more, Shedeur? Then we think back to the CJ Stroud Georgia game where he's like moving in the pocket. Right. He's making Jalen Carr miss. And people are like, where's Dit been the whole 3 years you've been at Ohio State? So I think that's the guy I think that would help him a lot. And I'll probably lean also to Bryce, because there's some people who still question Shadeur's arm talent in terms of how strong his arm is. I think his arm is plenty strong, to be honest with you. But I think Bryce being able to be that guy who wins with his mind, who processes well, things of that nature, I think that's going to help him as well. Because Bryce mentally, or I guess like personality-wise, different than both Stroud and Shedeur. Bryce is more close to the vest, calm, cool. I don't really talk much. Those two dudes, they'll tell you like it is. They don't really care. But I think CJ Stroud, especially, if he replicates or even takes it further than he did in 2023 and 2024, that's going to help. I think that'll help Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, all right. I want to. So the physical attributes, I agree. I think where this conversation gets interesting, because I think you like touched on it a little bit, but I don't want to just dip my toe in. I want to jump fully in the pool. DP, let's just go ahead and jump in, baby. The personalities, right? Mm-hmm. And this is very surface level in our conversations. Shedeur appears to have, you said he's outspoken, right? He doesn't mind hopping on Twitter. He doesn't mind speaking his mind. You know, if things happen, he'll speak out on it. CJ Stroud appears to be similar, right? Like I think this offseason he's went on a media tour, right? And he has some very, what we'll say in this media world, clippable moments. Meaning that, he's talking a little trash to Michael Parsons. He's telling certain defenders, we'd have beat you by 30. It's been that type of situation, right? Like it's been those things to where I wonder if we talk about NFL owners and their very direct thought process, right? In the NFL, it took 50 years, right, for a running quarterback to be viewed as a good thing. You get what I'm saying? Like it took 50 years for that. So I wonder if they're still going to be in a thought process where we want our quarterback to operate a certain way. And that's where I think CJ Stroud, not only on the field, right, but off the field, like their comparisons as far as personalities being strong personalities, and being outward and being spoken. What they don't necessarily always say the I don't say politically, but the PR thing, right? The public relations correct type situation, right? Like, let me hop on this podcast and just say a bunch of stuff, right? CJ Stroud, in my opinion, he kind of says what he feels, right? And what he feels, he says. And that's coming out now, but how does that turn into potentially bulletin board material? And then how does that potentially affect your play one way or the other? And then will owners be willing to bring that type of stuff in? So I think the comparison, DP, is not only an on the field, but I think it's an off the field situation that can be a very interesting dynamic when it comes to making decisions about who we want to lead our franchise.
No, 100%. Keith, you hit the nail on the head, right? Like they are the PR part where it's like, all right, we should say it this, and it's such a wild situation because on one, it's almost tongue in cheek. One moment, like the world wants these athletes to tell how they feel, tell the truth, tell us what you really feel after this loss. Don't give us don't sugarcoat us. Then when they don't sugarcoat, it's like, man, this dude he is off his rocker. He's off the hinges. He's uncontrollable, right? And I think if again, like you said, and then we watched CJ Stroud, despite all the things about his personality and everything, walk into an NFL locker room and be the leader, right? Like his connection with Tank Dell, where you see CJ Stroud typically, a lot of times you see Tank Dell. Like I think they just did a podcast with Gilly the Kid and
$1 million worth of game. I think that was the name of the podcast.
Yep. So and you thinking about it, it's crazy because everybody's like, yeah, Nico Collins is wide receiver 1. And I'm like, man, but every time I see CJ Stroud, he with his boy Tank Dell. Like, I don't know if that's the case. You know what I mean? Like it feels like there's a strong connection between those two and strong friendship and bond. So it's like, yeah, like you see him walk in and there wasn't no words or quotes about his leadership, outside out in the locker room. So all Shedeur, for me, I think like, yeah, I get it. Tweeting and like defending your dad, like I get it. Like it rubs people the wrong way because again, the image of a quarterback people view as just head to the ground, just grind. Don't say nothing, do different things like that. Meanwhile, we watched the quarterback documentary on Netflix, and we watched Pat Mahomes cuss out Max Crosby and tell him, I'm here. You know what I'm saying? Like after the little quote unquote cheap shot. It was like, so do we like bravado or do we not? You know what I mean? So at some point we gotta just let these players be themselves. But I think at the end of the day, if Stroud can continue to do what he's done last year and do it again, and then we get through the season, and I think also a big part of this for Shedeur, if they had a really bad team, right? The team won one game the year before they got there. If they win more games this year, Keith, and they're in the Big Ten and they're in the Big Ten championship, I think a lot of those talks start to dwindle down a little bit because what's the phrase? Winning cures all. It shuts a lot of stuff up when you win it.
Hey, I didn't even know that DP Colorado went to the Big Ten.
Big 12.
They went to the Big 12. Okay. Yeah, I said Big 10 at first. That's why I was like, oh, man, if they in the Big 10. Oh, man. Oh,
no,
baby.
No.
Oh,
no,
baby.
They didn't bring enough transfers for the Big 10, baby. They about to play grown man football in the Big 10. They ain't ready for that.
I was like, hold on, they in the Big 10. Hold on. Okay, well,
let's keep run games they were about to go see in the Big 10 was going to be crazy.
Yeah, man, it was going to get crazy out there. But let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. Up next, we're going to go to the SEC. We're going to Georgia quarterback Carson Beck. What quarterback needs to play well this season for Carson Beck NFL draft stock to elevate? We're going to talk about that next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost and a bonus daily. That's right, something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/locked on and start making the most out of your summer. Guys, on the FanDuel Sportsbook app right now, you can bet on everything in college football, national championship odds, college playoff odds, Heisman Trophy winner odds. You can do all of that right now. So again, head over to FanDuel.com/locked on and start making the most out of your summer, because FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Georgia quarterback Carson Beck. Keith, I mean, when you did the profile, you did the summer scouting notebook. You dropped your notes when you watched Georgia and you watched Carson Beck, and a name came to mind that I have not been able to shake since then. Derek Carr. And I know it's a lot of fans, Keith. They hear this and like, Keith, Coach K, I don't think I want any parts of Carson Beck. But like you said, if this was 5-6 years ago, you're like, oh, I'll take that guy top 10 with no problem, because he can win me games. He can get us to the playoffs. He has all the tools and talent. And I think for Beck, Carr, like Derek Carr, similar to Beck, physically gifted, big arms, strong arms, can make every single throw in the book. But it's the deep ball accuracy, it's the deep ball aggressiveness, and like I think I've seen a little bit of it with you. Tell me, because you watch the Saints a lot more than I do, but I saw glimpses of it with him targeting Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave down the field. I'm like, all right, Derek Carr, like if you do this more often, you'll really help your offense, because like this is what you've been missing for years, is the consistency to say, oh, you give me 1-on-1, you giving me single high, say less. I'm gonna go ahead and take that challenge and give my guy a shot, especially with the speed that he has in New Orleans. But when you look at it, is the Derek Carr comp for Carson Beck still standing for you?
Yeah, and I think is appropriate, and I don't like. See, this is the thing, and we have to kind of get out of our mind of what does the national media portray, and then we also have to stop with kind of recency bias so much. So Derek Carr, and first of all, let's break this down, right? 50% of all first-round draft picks do not make it, right? They don't. They end up being bust, right? Derek Carr was a top of the second round. I think he was the 33rd overall pick, right, out of Fresno State. So quarterbacks, right? We know quarterbacks come few in between, right? Like there's not many of them. So when we look at this and I say Derek Carr, how many great ones are there, right? How many great quarterbacks right now? I forgot who posted a graphic, right? But there's only, I think, 3 or 4 active quarterbacks that actually have Super Bowls. So let's put that into perspective first off, right? But looking at Derek Carr, and I'm not pounding the table for Derek Carr, but what I'm pounding the table for is that the conversation and context of what I'm saying and what I think Carson Beck could potentially be. Derek Carr in his career has 4 Pro Bowls, right? He's been to the Pro Bowl 4 different times in his career. He's been in the NFL since 2014. So four times in about a 10-year career. So that's half the time he's been a Pro Bowl caliber-esque quarterback, right? Then you break it down into some of the stats, right? This guy in 2016 went 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, right? That's efficient. 2017, 22 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. 2020, 27 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, right? I think that's the ceiling, right? To where he's throwing somewhere right under 30 touchdowns and right around 10 interceptions a year. That's a pretty solid year for a quarterback. That's what I think Carson Beck could be, an efficient quarterback. And this, when we look at the body types, right, that's what I see. I see, okay, a guy that's about 6'2", 6'3-ish, that's pretty good mobility, that can throw the ball down the field, operate efficiently in the offense that he feels comfortable with. If he has weapons, he can make some things happen. So that's why I like the Derek Carr comp, because I can't say now, like having watched Caleb Williams, right, last year, or watching Trevor Lawrence, like do I see that caliber of talent? No, I don't. but I still see potential for a good NFL quarterback. And at certain points, if there's a redraft, right, of Derek Carr's draft, Derek Carr would have been a first-round quarterback. Some people would have took him top 10 when he had those efficient 28 touchdowns, 9 interception years.
No, 100%. I think that's the thing is like, at the end of the day, like, can you win me games, right? Can I win with you? And we know that the Raiders were able to do it and win with him at certain points in his career. It's just for him, it was just consistency. And like with Carson Beck, I think what you're getting a Derek Carr version of Carson, or getting Carson Beck, who's a version of Derek Carr younger, bring him into your offense. You coach him up, you get that consistency going, but also work on what like the issues with this deep ball, whether it's footwork, whether it's triggering, reading. Like, all right, is he second guessing, like seeing the guy, like is that a step and a half? Like, hey, listen, in the NFL, if you got a step, throw it out there. Like Chad Ochocinco said, if I got this much of separation, I'm open, right? Like, granted, Chad Ochocinco was a different cat, but still, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's going to tell his quarterback, hey, I don't care, throw me the ball. But yeah, you got to trust your targets. I think sometimes with the deep ball, that's the other thing. It's trust. So it's either you don't trust yourself or you don't trust that you and your receiver are going to be able to connect. Just give them a shot. A lot of times, just give your guy, if it's one-on-one, just don't underthrow it, baby. I don't care if you throw it out in front of him. Just don't throw it behind him where the DB can make a play. So I do think, like, at the end of the day, yeah, the name Derek Carr is going to rub some people and some fans the wrong way. Like, man, I don't know about this one. Like, you know what I mean? And especially when you see him in mock drafts going first overall, top 3 and stuff like that, where those are franchise quarterback selection spots, right? But at the same time, if Derek Carr remained consistent at 30-8 in terms of touchdown interception ratio, nobody would bat an eye, Keith.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And that's what it's about, consistency. And then it's also about every draft is not created the same, right? Like every draft, and that's what we try to talk about. And that's why certain position groups, right? I think I tweeted this out yesterday. Will Johnson is my number 1 player. And I don't know if that's been, but the dude is good. I wasn't even watching Will Johnson. And then I ended up watching Will Johnson. I had to rewind the play because I said, I'm watching too much Will Johnson, DP. But that's just how it goes.
Welcome.
Every draft class is not created the same. And so you have to understand that, hey, taking these quarterbacks, it's about now, okay, if we have a Derek Carr-esque talent level, right? What if we put them, one of these teams move up? That's a really good situation. Like how we talked about the Vikings with JJ McCarthy last year, right? So one of those type of situations. And it's just funny how things go, right? Because even with the, everybody hated Kirk Cousins, and then he did nothing on the field. I'm not saying he didn't do anything as far as productive wise, but it was nothing on the field that changed his perception. You know what changed his perception, DP? A Netflix series. Like, oh, we serious, right? Everybody's seen him with his children, and then now we like, Kirk Cousins is a pretty solid quarterback, right? Like,
he's a human. He's a human being.
Like, what are we doing now? Now it's man, we're pulling for Kirk instead of all the other stuff. So we have to kind of,
Keith.
Yeah, we have to kind of put the media stuff into perspective. And I think Kirk Cousins, like I think you can win a Super Bowl, Kirk Cousins, just because he can throw the football. Like we've seen the Joe Flacco's, we've seen Nick Foles, we've seen we've seen other quarterbacks win Super Bowls that was not named Tom Brady, that didn't put it all on their back and make every single play for their offense. So DP, I'm gonna wrap it up with that conversation right there. I thought that was pretty good. It was fun doing these quarterback comparisons. We might have to jump into some wide receiver comparisons, right? And then talk about which wide receivers need to succeed in the NFL, and then that will help some of these draft prospects out, because we know this is a copycat league from the draft process to the NFL. We know how that thing goes. But man, listen, man, I want to say shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Like I said at the top of the show, I'm going to say it at the bottom of the show. Hit that like button. Don't forget to comment and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On NFL Draft to come see your boys and come talk to us. Listen, I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host. We go to war every day. We agree, but we disagree also, man. But you can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow free on YouTube. Wherever you listen to podcasts, get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today. And every day, shout for being our everydayers. On tomorrow's show, I'm going to open up the Scotty Notebook again, guys. I'm going to open it back up. Phil Maffa, the big physical runner from Clemson. Is he one of my highest graded running backs? We're going to talk about that tomorrow. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.